Welcome to Stylist Soul Tribe Conversations. I'm your host, Lisa Huff. Over the last 5 years, I've coached hundreds of hairstylists and beauty industry professionals, helping them work their dream schedules exclusively with their dream clientele and earn their dream income, all while fostering genuine connections and lifelong friendships inside the beauty industry. In this podcast, we dive deep into abundance, manifestation, business building strategies, and creating a life that you are truly proud of, both behind the chair and at home. Are you ready to embark on a journey of personal growth, success, and sisterhood? Then hit that subscribe button now and get ready to experience the pure magic of Stylist Soul Tribe Conversations. Welcome back to Stylist Soul Tribe Conversations. I am here today with an old friend of mine, Taylor Schulz. She will always be Tay-Pom to me, though, because that's her maiden name. Taylor and I met way back in high school. We worked at Texas Roadhouse together way back in the day. We drifted apart for many years, and then we found ourselves in this really beautiful collaborative business friendship. Taylor is a professional wedding and boudoir photographer serving Chicago and worldwide who has kind of become like a token member of Stylist Soul Tribe. She's photographed our last 2 retreats. She knows the community. She's been in the room of some of the biggest, most impactful breakthrough moments of my professional life. She's a fellow big dreamer, go-getter, passion-led, entrepreneurial spirit. Taylor's been a huge fan of this podcast. Since episode one, she sends me love and messages every few weeks telling me how much she's enjoying listening to each episode. So I told her, why don't you just come on? I know she's not a hairstylist, but if she's enjoying this podcast so much, I think that you guys will enjoy her equally the same. Tay, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you. That was like an awesome intro.
You're so easy. I did type that out ahead of time, but you're so easy to like do that with. I feel like we are just such like months can go by, weeks can go by, years can go by, and when we get connected again, you're just like, we just get each other.
100%. I just love you to death. So it's just easy, you know?
I love you. So I guess what made you, I remember, like I said, Taylor, from episode 1, she's been sending me so much love through this podcast. You just like light me up. You make me so happy. You're the biggest cheerleader. You're such a good friend. But like, what was the switching point when you were finally like, okay, I'm going to do it? Like, wait, what made you decide that?
So I've really been jumping into the boudoir world, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a really big fear of mine. And I've, expressed that to you a lot. And I think that was a turning point for me. Like, okay, I actually have something that I can share that might be helpful to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, why not just go for it? I'm stepping into all these big fears. Why not do
Yeah.
another one?
Yeah, you're already doing things that scare you, so let's just add another one to it. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's go back in time a little bit. We probably don't need to go all the way back to Texas Roadhouse because that's probably overkill, but let's go back in time a little bit on just like your personal, professional journey. Obviously, I know a lot about you between how long I've known you, our incredible times we've spent together, but then we also did like a short period of coaching, Taylor and I, so I really
Yeah.
got to know you on a deeper level when we did that too. So you started in nursing, you've had quite the transition. Just like try to tell your story from back to when it feels appropriate.
Sure. So I, for my whole life, wanted
Hmm.
to be a photographer, but my dad specifically was like, that's great, but you need a real job. And
Mm,
I think he had like the biggest heart towards it. He owned his own business and he did really well for himself, but there was also a lot of like, it's like feast or
struggle too.
famine,
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think he was trying to protect me.
Mm,
And for a long time, I went back and forth about what I wanted to do. And I landed on nursing,
mm.
and I was a new nurse, maybe only like a year or two before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And it just kind of broke my
I
spirit. And
can't
I
even
was like,
imagine.
yeah, it was just
Yeah.
one of those things where I was like, all right, I really don't like this. And the turning point where I really made my decision was I was second shooting with a good friend of mine, and we went to New York to do the wedding. And after that, we were like, let's go to Boston, let's take advantage and have the time of our lives on this trip.
Hmm.
So I was just observing her. We were with one of her friends, and I was just kind of observing her, and I really like hold her in high regard. She's an
Yeah.
awesome human being. And I went outside by the docks because Boston is surrounded by water. And I just
Hmm.
sat by myself thinking, like, I admire her so much, and
Mm,
this is the reality of her life. And
mhm,
there are so many other possibilities. I don't have to stick with nursing.
mm,
And on that doc, I was like, I'm going to call my husband, Kevin,
yeah.
and talk with him. And he was just 2021.
Okay, so just, I mean, late into 2021, 3 years ago, almost four
Yeah.
years ago. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
so really not that long ago. It's actually kind of wild that that's when you decided that this would be like your full-time gig, because from the outside
Yeah.
looking in, you seem so well established, so like on top of your game, and that this has been like your career for a lot longer than that. So you made that decision, and then what did that look like? Did you just quit? Did you like, did you move slowly? Did you move quickly? What it was that?
I moved really quick. So that was in September and I quit nursing in October. I gave my 2 weeks and it was just one of those things where I felt so free. I was very scared. And I mean, like you said, I seem so established. I had been doing photography on the side for a really
Mm,
long time, but I really wanted to move more into weddings.
okay.
And so that's what I started with. I had a few weddings booked for the next year already. So I was confident that I could make money. And I was thinking to myself, if I just put all my focus onto photography, I don't see why I wouldn't book more
Yeah.
in the next year. If I need to get a job, like I've served for so long,
Hmm.
like, waitress for people
You know you
who
could
don't
make
know that.
money somewhere if you needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about it. So I immediately quit. I jumped into it. I hired you as a coach, and I feel like you helped me with so much structure
Mm.
throughout that whole transition period because while I had been a photographer for a while, I had no idea about business. And
Yeah.
I was like, Lisa, you're like the best businesswoman I know.
That's
Like,
so
help
nice.
me.
Wow. So
So,
looking
yeah.
back, do you like wish that you would have made that decision sooner, or do you feel like you did it in the exact right time? Like hindsight, if somebody, I always think of like who's listening in on this, like if somebody is almost in that similar situation where they just know they're not where they're supposed to be, do you feel like you felt like you lived in that space for long, or you like instantly felt that feeling and you were like, okay, it's time? How long was that span for?
I think I always knew that I wasn't on the right
Mm.
path with nursing. I genuinely love people, so I thought
Mm-hmm.
that I would really like that. But I always had this sense that like I've always been a dreamer and I've always had this sense that life is so much more than going to work for someone else
Shift work,
and not
yeah.
being able to, yeah, like live the life that you want to live. So I think I really needed to go through that to prove to myself that okay, this is really what I want. Like I kind of needed to grow in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Like I think it was good for me to have a professional job, to learn how
Yeah.
to be professional and to problem solve because that's
Yeah.
all nursing is you're putting out fires like one after the other
Mm-hmm.
all day.
Yeah.
So I think I personally needed that experience and I needed to build my confidence before I became a business owner
Mm-hmm.
because that's not something that I really had going into nursing,
Mm-hmm.
but you learn to critically think. However, in hindsight, as I grow in this career, I'm like, if I started when I was 18, 19,
Mm.
20, I would have been light years ahead. And I think
Mm.
I would have built that confidence regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So I never want to give anyone advice because it's all
Everything
personal,
happens for a reason, kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, but I do think that if you're open to learning from your failures, you can learn in any sort of situation that you're in, as
Mm-hmm.
long as you have direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking back, do you think Taylor, who was like starting going to nursing school, like, do you think even then she knew it was photography, or maybe not quite that that was the answer?
I guess I didn't really believe in myself, but I had
Mm.
this deep-seated like desire to be a
Okay.
photographer. When
Okay.
I was young, I had all of these photos. Like my mom used to be a hairstylist, and so
Mm-hmm.
she had all these magazines in her salon that was in
Mm.
our house.
Yeah.
And I would just rip out like all these high fashion, like beautiful portraits of women, and they were like plastered all over my walls.
Wow.
And not to like envy them or look like them or anything. I just wanted to create something
You
like
were
that
drawn to the
so
art.
badly. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when was like the
So
first time you got a camera or started even like playing around with photography? Was this like MySpace days? Like when do you feel like you
yes.
started experimenting with that?
Yeah, I asked for a camera every year from the time I was like 8 years old for
Oh,
Christmas. And I don't think I got my first, like my dad got me one of those like Snapchat ones when I was
mm-hmm.
like 10. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, Dad, this isn't what I wanted. Like I
Yeah.
wanted a real professional camera. And I
Oh,
think it was like sixth or seventh grade. They like he finally got me one.
wow.
And it was like the lowest quality, but I didn't care. Like I just
Yeah.
would take pictures of the stupidest things. Like it
Yeah, I mean,
wasn't
I feel like
good.
we even back then we all kind of did. That was like the era we
Yeah.
grew up in. Like I know I had some really embarrassing MySpace pictures back in the day.
Yeah.
So I can't even, but I also never had that like inside of me of like, oh, this photography is going to be my art. Like that was never there. So I was just wondering how that differed for you growing up in that time. And then did you ever set it down for a period of time or it was always kind of there in the background?
I set it down, I think, just because once I got in high school, I was like not,
Preoccupied.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, doing so many things that
Okay.
teenagers shouldn't do. And I
Yeah.
just didn't really like, to be honest, I didn't really care about much.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
So,
I feel that you know who I
yeah.
was, and I really didn't care about much, or I cared about the wrong things for a long period of time. That's really interesting though. So it was like it was there as like a baby, and then you drifted away from it, and then you knew that that was still kind of it. So did you feel like you knew that was it when it was like time to start thinking about careers? Is that when that bubbled back up?
No, I think it was more of a creative outlet.
Okay.
I really just I would take my cousins and we'd go to like random fields. I mean, Illinois is just like
Yeah.
filled with fields.
Uh-huh.
And I was older than them, so I was 21 when I started doing this. And I was like, if you
Okay.
guys come with me, I'll buy you beer.
Oh my
Like,
God, stop. That's
you
so
know?
funny. And that
Yeah.
was like that you like they were doing you a favor by you getting to
Yeah.
take photos of them, which other way around, typically little girls are like, "Oh yeah, let me play model," but that you
Yeah.
were so you wanted to do it so bad. That is so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And that's when I kind of got started and I would do like family sessions for like $50.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so cool. Like I
Oh,
just wanted to take pictures. Like I didn't
mhm,
really understand that you could create an experience with a much deeper
mhm.
meaning for them because I was just having so much fun with it. And I did that throughout nursing school
Okay.
even.
Yeah, that was
So,
just kind of the side gig. That's so cool. And then
yeah,
realizing that you can make money with that is so neat and so cool. Okay, so I've seen obviously just from like being a follower of yours, you've really and we have not ta Taylor and I have not caught up in a while. Last time we really like spoke in depth was last year's retreat. You know, we were
yeah,
together for the weekend. So I got to watch this from like the outside perspectives, you rolling all of this out. So you're transitioning into boudoir. To me, from the outside looking in, I don't know if you've listened to every single podcast episode or not, but like to me, I spy a big magic idea. That's kind of what it feels like. Like I don't know when you decided to make this transition or how you've what's been going on in the background to go full force into this, but it's been really cool to watch from the outside looking in. So I'd love like a peek behind the curtains on what's been
sure.
happening. Yeah.
So yes, I have listened to every single episode.
I love you so much.
I'm a fangirl.
So you
I
know
love
what
you
I'm saying
too.
when I talk about big magic.
Yes, a
Okay.
100%. I think in the back of my mind, I always wanted to take more high fashion portraits. I
Mm-hmm.
still have a big dream of one day being featured in Vogue.
Okay.
Um, but I wanted it to be a little bit more meaningful in a way that I could help women
Mm-hmm.
specifically. Really, I wanted to encourage their confidence. And I am a big, like, I don't want to say I'm a big woo-woo person. Like I do draw a
Mm-hmm.
line, but I love
Mm-hmm.
like meditations, journaling, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I think it can really allow you to deep dive into the person that you are and make the necessary changes that you need to make in order
Yeah.
to be the best version of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you remember when we were coaching, I had that big magic. It
Mm-hmm.
was like on the spot. We saw it
Mm-hmm.
happen
Mm-hmm.
where I really at one point wanted to open a mental health facility because I
Mm-hmm.
was working in the mental health field with
Mm-hmm.
adolescents and I loved it. But I think I really lost momentum on that because
Mm-hmm.
I was so focused on photography specifically,
Mm-hmm.
which is not a bad thing. But I'm
And let me just
realizing
even
now.
pause there because obviously the people listening weren't there when me and you had that moment. I also think, Taylor, I'm going to be able to watch this when we're like little old ladies. I think all of this is going to eventually be woven together, but so many of us are so multifaceted. Like, we have hairstylists that build their business and then they're like, now what? Now I'm bored. Like, I figured out how to build a successful business and now what? And I think you just have that same whatever it is in you. Like, you're passionate, you dream so big. And I think somehow, and I have really, really big dreams that have nothing to do with my industry at all, but like where I still want to like maybe philanthropy wise, like weave all of this in together because I am Lisa holistically in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. So it's interesting to hear you say that. I wasn't sure if you even like were going to go there or not, or where you even kind of stood with that old big magic idea. But I think all of these just compound and trickle in and like are little glimmers and ideas that either fade out or fade back in or whatever. So it's interesting just to hear you say that. And I just want to talk to the person that's like, I want to do a million things and none of them make sense together because that's so many of us. But keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I mean, it's
Yeah.
absolutely true. I was even thinking about that recently, how it's a very similar message to what I was telling you with the mental health facility. I wanted to use more of a holistic approach
Hmm.
to everything in order to encourage confidence in people to
Hmm.
be their realest, most authentic self and to not be afraid of that. And
Hmm.
that's the exact message that I have with my boudoir clients.
Hmm.
So I think the tipping point was really the fact that after this year's wedding season, I was still feeling like I wanted something different.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love couples and shooting
Totally.
weddings, and I don't want to stop doing that.
Yeah.
But I do want something that is a little bit for me while
Yeah.
helping people. I just find women to be so fascinating and
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, and I love to capture the sensuality of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I was also kind of sick of only like living halfway. Like I was really fearful of the change because I didn't want to like mess up, I guess for lack of better
Mm-hmm.
words, the business that I had already built.
I feel that.
Um yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's scary because you don't know how people are going to perceive that,
Mm-hmm.
especially wedding clients. When I book a year or 2 years in advance, I don't want them to be like, are is she still invested in me? Because
Mm-hmm.
I totally
Of
am.
course. Yeah.
It's just more of a focus and a calling that I have to serve
Mm-hmm.
women in this way,
Mm-hmm.
especially since I have recently, I mean, I've been working on developing a deep sense of confidence for a
Mm-hmm.
very long time.
Yeah.
And I think through all that work, I am finally ready to share that message. And I think
Yeah.
that's really like the combination of being, of wanting more and being able to convey that message from a place of truth. Like I'm not
Yeah.
faking it anymore.
Yeah.
I can really hold space for people in that way. So I thought I'm finally ready for this, you
And it
know?
makes sense that your medium is just photographs. Again, you
Yeah.
just have, and it's never going to go away. And what felt like such an exciting rush, leaving nursing and going into photography, and probably how you felt for those first few weddings was such like an addictive high
Yes.
that, at first it's so exciting, but then once you do 200 of them, it just starts again, for the consumer listening, whether you're getting your hair done by me or you're getting photographed by Taylor, it's not that you do your job any less well. It just loses that sparkle that it had once. And I don't even know what the word is for to describe people like us, but I am always just seeking that. And analogy, I've never said this on the podcast yet. I used to post about this on Instagram a long time ago. It's a really, 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 really old episode of the Skinny Confidential. Lauren and Michael were talking about experience stretching. And like this has stuck with me for years. I remember hearing them saying it. And the story that they told on this podcast episode, I'm sure if you Googled it or something, you could find it, was like, okay, you wake up one day, you're like you're depressed, things are down, your life doesn't look real great. You wake up one day, you step outside and you see like a beautiful sunset. I guess you don't wake up one day, you go outside, you see a beautiful sunset and you're like, wow, that's like the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen. That's so amazing. And then weeks later, months later, you're sitting at a restaurant out, on a patio, sipping a drink with all of your friends laughing, and you see a sunset and you're like, wow, it doesn't get better than this. Like, this is so amazing. Years, months, whatever go by, you're like on a yacht in the middle of the Indian Ocean with everybody you love, and you see a sunset and you're like, holy fuck, it truly does not get any better than this. And then a month goes by and you see that same like original sunset or whatever, and it's just like, whatever. Like that's experience stretching. And that stuck with me so much because it was almost like my first client. It was like, whoo, I am pushed to my edge. I love this feeling. And then that lost its impact. And then it was like, okay, my own business. And then that lost its impact. And then my specialty. And then, but if you're like me and you sense those people that are like that, I know Taylor's like this too. You're always seeking that like stretch, like a little bit
Yes.
beyond. And I hope boudoir scratches that itch for you for a very long time, but I'm positive it's going to continue to evolve. You're young. Like things are still going to continue to evolve and grow. So it makes perfect sense to me that this is the medium. Like that shift makes perfect sense to me. You've built a beautiful business. You have the equipment. You have, the platform. It makes perfect sense that this is it for now. But I'm sure even beyond. And same thing with Soul Tribe. It's going to continue to evolve. Things are going to continue to become different because we're just those kind of people, right?
We are. And I know I listened to that episode. I know what
You
you're
know what I'm
talking
talking
about. I
about.
I
Yeah.
love that
I'm sure I
podcast.
botched it. Maybe add to it if I messed something up. But yeah.
No, you got it right. I mean, it's so true. And it's not to be confused with like, not being able to be content,
Hmm.
because I think there's a beauty in that too, to sit in
Yes.
that season and to be really present, I guess you could
Hmm.
say. But it's so true. I mean, when I started weddings, I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I never thought that I would get there. But after a while, you do start to realize, and you become sort of an expert in it, and you
Hmm.
realize that either so many people are doing the same thing because they
Hmm.
see other people doing it, or you have people who are maybe not the best fit for you, but even if
Hmm.
you try to tell them, it's almost like they want you more,
Hmm.
and you're like, I maybe like could do this for, like, I know I have the capacity
Yeah.
to do it, but I don't think a lot of people understand that like photography is not just photography, is just
Hmm.
photography. It's like
Hmm.
it's a very specific way of like every photographer has a very specific way of going about things.
Hmm.
And I just was feeling really pulled in a lot of different directions. Like there's almost so much going on in the industry, whether you're here or there or whatever,
Hmm.
of people really telling you what you need to do and how you need to do it.
Hmm.
And I think as very creative people like you and I are, we really need
Hmm.
space to stretch our wings.
Yeah.
And I don't like being confined. I don't know if that's a problem or what, but
Yeah.
I'm like, the second that I feel tied down, I'm like,
Hmm.
whoa.
Yeah.
And I'm not scared of commitment. It's like,
Hmm.
please let my ideas flow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not going to keep creating ideas.
Hmm.
So I feel like I have this container in boudoir where I mean, ironically, I use the word container, but I'm not really contained because
Yeah.
each experience is so unique to the particular situation that woman is in.
Hmm.
And I plan on going on a very depthful journey. I
Hmm.
mean, ideally, this is a 3-month process that I have with them to really get to know them and to
Okay,
hone
will you
on.
explain that whole vision? Because I even remember you
Yes.
telling me that you do this with couples when you photograph weddings, and like that some people would like when I was coaching Taylor. It's also so funny to hear you say this, how we're in such different industries, but like we're dealing with almost exactly the same thing to a T.
Yes.
Consultations with clients, education all being the same, being told what to do. Like it is so parallel. But I remember you having this thought even with weddings, like you just want to be so much deeper than like snap your pictures, edit them, send them to you. So I would love to have the opportunity. And then if anybody is listening to this and ever wants to take you up on that, I know we have a Soul Tribe member that's in another state that has had you come to her.
Yes.
What is your like full vision with this boudoir experience?
So I'm really excited about it because to start off, obviously, we're going to have our consultation. And within that, I hope to attract women that are, really kind of like us, like
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, really driven, but have something that they're transitioning or grappling with,
Mm-hmm.
and they need like a deeper, almost like a reset to kind
Mm-hmm.
of hone in on what's going on and pull out the real them. Like, I don't know if
Mm.
you listen to Jen Gottlieb, I think I'm going to butcher her
Yep.
last name,
Mm-hmm.
but she really speaks to the real you. And that
Mm-hmm.
message really has always spoken to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to pull that out because I feel like that's been a part of my confidence journey, is just being myself, like 100% myself under all circumstances, like no waving of care, like having a strong character and not
Yeah.
waving in that.
Yeah.
And I really want to hold space for women. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to take more of like a creative director role where they
Mm-hmm.
sort of tell me what's going on and I plan to help them style everything. Like, I will go
Mm-hmm.
shopping for them
Wow.
to match their personality, their personal style,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the core of who they are. And a lot of, you always hear fashion is like a representation of who you
Mm-hmm.
are, what you're feeling, what you want to portray to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like a really well put together outfit does wonders for photos. So it's going to
Wow.
help them in that way too.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to pair them up with hair and makeup artists
Mm-hmm.
who are going to come to the studio the day of. They're going to get completely pampered. Like, they don't have to worry about booking. Like, I will match
Mm-hmm.
them with someone who can bring their vision to life.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to deep dive on the specific issues that they're going through. And through that, I plan to create a custom meditation. I'm not yoga certified, but I
Mm-hmm.
went through the entire program. Unfortunately, I got the dates confused for the deadlines
Yeah.
and I missed my test.
Yeah.
But I went through the whole course and there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like legally wrong with me doing
Absolutely not.
meditations for people. So
Yeah.
I really want to like help them
I'm obsessed with
heal
that.
that part of that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I want to do that before the session so we can, like,
Mm-hmm.
I love the phrase drop in. Like, once I tell
Mm-hmm.
myself drop in, I
Mm-hmm.
go into my flow state.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to help them drop in. We'll have the photo shoot. Ideally would love women who appreciate fine art, high fashion, really
Mm-hmm.
cool, unique artistic poses, but also enjoy the femininity and
Mm-hmm.
the sensuality of it all. Like, I love the idea of the strength of women, which is
Mm-hmm.
sort of masculine, but also resting in that beautiful femininity.
Mm.
Like, there's both. And
Yeah.
I think that in order to be a highly successful CEO entrepreneur, that is what you will have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after our session, I got this idea from you actually, because it's so powerful, writing a letter to their future self.
Mm. Love.
After that whole experience, like, what
Mm-hmm.
did you learn? What do you
Yeah.
hope to come from this?
Yeah.
And then just capsulating their images in an album. So they
Oh,
always
how
have that.
stunning. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
scrumptious. That's like all I can think of you describing that.
Uh,
And obviously, we've been in rooms together when we've done, energy healing work, things like that. Absolutely, you legally, morally, all the things. All of us have every right to step into that. My friend Kristen Sozman, she's been on the podcast. She leads all the meditations and stuff at my retreats and stuff like that. I don't think she has any certification, but she's told me before that there's been people she's been coaching and they're like, what course would you recommend? What would you recommend I do to like learn how to guide meditations? She was like, I would recommend you stay so far away from that because you have it in you. You don't need someone
mm,
else to tell you that. That is the opposite of what energy work is. Like, you don't need to be taught that. You don't need a piece of paper to let you do that. It's the opposite of that. You having that calling and your own inner guidance or whatever that can come out through that. So like, I just want to give you even more reassurance for that piece specifically. And what I'm just like envisioning as you're talking about that is it's almost just like this like rebirth. Like, I don't know if you're going to
yes.
incorporate any release into that, but if there can be
Yep.
like some sort of release before the photos and then these photos it's like a rebirth, like you find that very best version of you, you drop into her in that moment that you're taking those photos, and like that's who you leave. Like, oh, it's like a butterfly going into a cocoon. Like, it's so beautiful. I'm so glad I asked you to explain that vision deeper. And did that just come out of your own brain? Did you brainstorm that with people? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So going back to the rebirth, I can't even believe you said that word because I
That's what
have
you're
three.
describing to me.
Yes, that's one of my collections is called
Mm,
Rebirth. And I'm just like, I can't, I've been writing about that for the last
Hmm.
couple days. Like, I just can't even believe that you said that word, but
So
we're
this
just
is
very
very in alignment.
connected. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I did, I want to say it was a year ago. I was at like an album, sort of like it was an in-person album course. And
Hmm.
I don't even know how it came up, but I just like I had been thinking about this and I was with a bunch of other photographers and I was
Hmm.
like, ideally I would love to do this. And it all just like poured out and everyone was like, I've never
You're
heard
doing
that
that. Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
really just I came up with it. It's been in the works in my brain for a long time, but
Hmm.
I don't know why. I think I just thought it was weird. Like I was like, this is so weird. People are gonna think that I'm like this woo-woo person and they're gonna be like drawn away from it.
I'm drawn to weird. Like that is
Yeah.
right. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
looking for people with the same kind of weird as me or different weird. Expose me to new weird. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that you were able to speak that out loud and they were able to pour that into you. When it comes to obviously, because we're gonna have a lot of hairstylists listening to this, when it comes to this like beauty team, like do you have like where are you finding these people? What does that look like?
Sure. So a lot of, well, weddings, like I meet a lot
Okay,
of
you've
hair
already
and
have all
makeup
these
artists.
connections. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I've had one hairstylist reach out that I actually know from my mom being a stylist.
Okay.
So I'm really looking for people, and because I think my clients that come to me, they really like that more natural, like
Mm-hmm.
sensual but sexy, like
Mm-hmm.
beautiful look. So
Mm-hmm.
I really have been searching for more of those type of artists, maybe
Mm-hmm.
with a little bit more of a luxury. And I just want to make sure it's all sort of like the same level so
Mm-hmm.
that it's a really well-rounded experience for them.
Love that. Okay, I just had a drop in when you were talking. So this is where I jump into my like big dreaming coaching mode. So pardon me. If none of this is in alignment with you, just leave it right there. If it is, pick it up. But what I'm even envisioning, because I already know you already have so many stylists just from through Soul Tribe experiences that are in your corner, but I'm like, Tay, you could literally like if somebody's listening to this and they get really drawn to it, whether it's a makeup artist, a photographer, or a hairstylist, somebody that could collaborate in any way with this experience. I'm like, even if they live in Texas, like what if you they were just as drawn to this idea as you and you almost did like pop-ups in places and they like put it out to their clientele and their people like that could exist and you could have I know you just did like I think a content day to get all the stuff for content for this idea you had. I'm like that could exist like in different locations. I don't know, that could be really cool.
Lisa, I just got chills all down my back when
Yeah,
you said
I can't help
that.
but just like grab your idea and run even further with it. But I'm like, the sky's the limit with that. And obviously your target market for this is a very specific type of person. And that's even kind of what I found with obviously doing hair. It turned from like people loving the hair I did to then just loving the conversations I have to then like my clients sit in my chair still and they're like, I wish I could be in Soul Tribe. Like, I want to talk about all these things that you're talking about. And it's like, you could take that idea and not be, stuck in your, local space. And if somebody else was really into that, that could even be a collaborative experience. And that could be really cool too. So that's my
Honestly,
idea.
that would be so cool. It's not even crossed my mind,
Well, there
but
you go.
I love traveling. I love
Uh-huh.
new experiences, and I love all the girls in Soul
Mm-hmm.
Tribe. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be around them more and I
Mm-hmm.
just trust them all so much to do such a good job.
Yeah.
Like, that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, if anyone's listening to this and that really speaks to you, let us know. I'm really feeling all of this is speaking to me. So we're gonna have to eventually talk about me being on the other side of that because yeah, you even saying that, I'm like, I feel like it would have to be like a moment in time. Like it would have been good for like my 30th birthday. I guess I don't need to make it that deep, but I think one day that will eventually happen and take place. Yeah,
You'll
I
know
love
when you're
this.
ready.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love this. Cool. Okay, so I'm love, love, love that we went that route. It's like, how do I even stay on my talking points from there? We talked about serving women, encouraging them to step into their real self. I feel like we kind of went over that. Is there anything else, any other message that you're feeling really called to share around that talking point, or not necessarily?
I mean, I feel really good about it. I think the only thing that I would like to encourage is
Mm,
truly putting in the work and
mm,
seeing fear, feeling fear, and just taking action on it. I think
Mhm.
that's the best way to go about any of this because I am a big believer that action creates clarity. So
Mhm.
if you want something more for your life, just go after it.
Yeah.
And that's something I wish that I would have done a lot sooner, which is why I feel like I should say that, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And you've done it, you did it in the capacity that you could, but you don't get to that higher capacity until you do it in those small ones, you know? And then eventually
Absolutely.
it compounds and gets bigger and you get braver and the moves you're making become even more astronomical. Okay, I also had a little touch on like personal development. So I'd love to just kind of go that route. When I think of you and I think of personal development, you're an Ed Milet girly.
Yeah.
Like Taylor loves Ed Milet. She sent me the book, which then turned into a whole group of Soul Tribe members reading the book at the same time and doing a little book club. You talked about Jen Gottlieb. Like, what's your journey been with personal growth, personal development? Who stands out to you? What are your, like, when you think of that, what is Taylor's takeaway from all of that?
Yes, I am obsessed with Ed Milet.
What about him specifically? Like, why him?
So it's kind of funny because I always say that if my dad were a more confident person,
Mm,
him and Ed Milet would be the same human being. And so I
okay.
think I just have this innate, like, I just feel connected
Connection
with
to him.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I also loved his story of growing up with an alcoholic dad
Yeah.
and just having all of those similar experiences throughout my life. Like,
Mm,
not only was it his personality, but it was the message. And I don't know what it is in me. Like, I remember being this way since I could remember anything. I was
mm-hmm.
always trying to be the best version of myself. In my
Mm,
head, I was always like, okay, what can I do to be better? How can I fix this? And
mm,
I mean, even as like a young girl, like
mm-hmm.
I have always been like that, but I didn't know
What
really
that
many
was.
people. Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
no one really was doing that.
Yeah.
And it's not to discredit them. I mean, the people in my life were great people, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have that same
You're
like
like, I have something else
fire.
in me that other people
E-
don't have. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
And I think it was really when I got into photography, I was looking for a mentor, like when I was
Mm-hmm.
still in nursing, and I
Mm-hmm.
hired my friend. Well, now she's my friend, but she was
Yeah.
my coach. And she was just so into that. Like
Mm.
it was like jaw dropping every time she spoke because I'm like, you're speaking what I'm like thinking all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she put a name to it. Like I didn't know
Mm.
that it was personal development. And
Mm.
she had me reading all these books
Yeah.
and we would talk about podcasts
Okay,
that she
pause.
loved.
What are like the books that were the most life-changing for you specifically?
Oh gosh. So I think one of the first books I read that she suggested was Atomic Habits.
So good.
Oh, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think because this was like 4 years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
there was The Untethered Soul, which I started
I have not
reading.
read that yet, but I've heard that it's amazing.
It's insane. I was not ready for it and I
Mm.
actually stopped because it
Okay.
became very overwhelming.
Okay.
I just started to read it again on
Okay.
Sunday.
Okay.
So it's one of those like you really have to be prepared.
Okay,
Um
while you're saying that, I want to share a couple other books that I know are like that too. So, The Untethered Soul, I haven't read that. It's been in my cart to read forever. Really good to know that it can sometimes stop you in your tracks. How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole something, the holistic
I know her.
psychologist.
Yep.
Yep, that book was so good. I didn't have that like jarring of an experience when I was reading it, but someone else in Soul Tribe, like it rocked her fucking world. Like she was like you said, she had to put it down. Like she has been talking about it for 2 years now. Like it's just so interesting how certain books impact people. So like for me, it was Big Magic. It was The Secret. It was like, but it's like some just land differently with other people. And then I've also heard that The Body Keeps the Score is another very similar one to that. And I just grabbed that and I started reading it because that's like all about trauma. And so obviously that can be like really triggering for people too. Sorry to chime in. I just
No,
love jumping
yeah.
books and all of this.
Me too. I just got I asked for it for Christmas, The
Okay.
Body Keeps the Score, and
Mm.
I'm planning on reading it this year.
I've heard that's a
Um,
hard one to get through sometimes. It can be very like triggering. And I don't know. I'm not that far into it. I'm like one chapter in.
I'm thinking it will be, but that's okay. Like
Yeah.
I think it's good. Like there are different layers of healing and you never really arrive at the
Mm-hmm.
spot you think you will. Like it just
Yep.
keeps going, which
Mm.
is so cool to me. But oh my gosh, I'm just trying to think. Like I've read so many books throughout the years. There was this one book about confidence that I forgot her last name, but it's Lisa something. And
Okay.
her and her husband were like the founders of these protein bars. And
Yeah,
she just,
Quest. That's a
yes,
Bilyeu. Tom and Lisa Bilyeu,
yep,
right? Yeah.
yep,
I
that's,
haven't
and
read
that
that
one
book, but I know which
helped.
one you're talking about. Yeah.
It was so good. I mean, I think also a big part for me was coupling that with podcasts, like specifically
Hmm.
Ed Milet. I got home from a photography retreat in California, and the women who led it, they were just so driven and
Hmm.
so like, I mean, they were working like 14, 15-hour days and still getting up at like 5 a.m. to go for like a 10-mile run.
Yeah.
And so I got home and I was like, well,
I'm really
like,
inspired, but also
yeah.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really just started working out like in my basement and listening to Ed Milet's
Mm.
podcast, like all of his
Love.
old ones. And
Mm.
that just kind of like drilled it in my brain. But I mean, the books that I read, they're always like in the morning is my personal development, like
Mm.
whatever I'm on. Like I'm just so bad at remembering names, so I apologize.
Okay.
But a lot of it is business orientated
Yeah.
too, and that's like
And
weaved in.
honestly, like the ones that you remember are the ones that really stand out. So that's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Big Magic, 100%
You've
Big
read Big
Magic.
Magic
Like,
too? It's a good one.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
It that one really helped me give up a lot of like not only self-doubt, but like I guess, like the fact that I thought that I was gonna start this creative business and that I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna just get all these people and I was owed that because I'm working so hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is like you really need to like do the work for a long
Mm-hmm.
time and it's okay. And
Yeah.
she just helped me see creativity in a different light to kind of release any expectations that I had.
Mm.
So that
Love.
was super helpful.
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been years since I've read Big Magic, so I honestly have a hard time. I feel like all the books I read start to kind of morph together. Like it's hard to even
Yeah.
remember where I picked up each message. So even hearing you say that, I'm like, I don't remember that from that book specifically, but I bet it was there because that is so ingrained in me. What you just said in that book was like so pivotal in my own journey when I was, having my spiritual awakening or whatever the hell I was going through. But the best transformation I've ever experienced. So love, love, love that. I'm always looking for recommendations, things like that. And this dropped in too when you were talking. Ed Milet has a mastermind, right?
I do. And I think
Him
about
and Andy
joining it.
Frisella. And it's like, I mean, it's pricey, but it's not that bad, in my opinion.
No, he also has another one with Brendan or Brandon
Shard.
Bouchard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think about doing that because there's just I told you this and it's like a long time ago and it's a little embarrassing to say out loud, but
Say
I
it.
just have this like vision that one day I will meet Ed
Mm-hmm.
Milet, that I will be on his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. I just like
It
feel
will
this
happen.
connection,
That's
you
okay. It
know?
will happen. I think you got to speak that shit out. And then you can pull these clips up when that happens one day and be like, I wasn't shitting you that was my goal. I think it will happen. I'm sure Ed Milet will listen to this podcast episode and he'll give you a call and he'll say, Taylor, come on, come be on the show. You've been tagging me every single Monday for years. Let's go. Let's do this. That's so funny. Oh, I'm obsessed
Yeah.
with you, Taylor.
I
Um,
love you.
I love you so much. Okay, we're coming up on an hour. I feel like we surprisingly did hit all the talking points that I wanted to hit. Anything else you feel called to dive into, called to share? Anything else you want to say before we start to wrap up?
No, I feel really good.
This
Yeah.
was fun. We
This was so
laughed.
fun.
We had breakthrough ideas. We shared recommendations. I'm excited to listen to this one back. This was good. I knew it was going to be good. I recorded a little Instagram reel before I got on here and I texted you. I actually had a podcast that was supposed to be before this one and she canceled. And that was good timing. I've actually had like a really off week. I've got some stuff going on, just like mom life stuff that's happening. I've been really thrown off this week. I don't want to like go into details, but I took the morning slow. I cleaned my office. I cleansed my space. I cleansed my energy. And you were just like the exact human I needed to have a good conversation with. So thank you for bringing
That's
me
so
back.
sweet.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
sweet. I feel like we just do like you do that for me too. I feel like whenever I'm with you, it's just like we do. We have
It's so
breakthroughs,
good.
we laugh, like
It's so
I
good.
just appreciate you and love you so much.
I love you too, Tay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you feel super called or connected to any of this, like just have a conversation. If you are one of these souls like us, I think that's my purpose here on earth is to make those connections. So please listen to that tug if you have it.